Hi, I'm Michelle Chalfant, psychotherapist, holistic life coach, and human just like you, learning to navigate life's challenges. With over 25 years experience, I teach people how to get healthy using the adult chair model. The adult chair model is where simple psychology meets grounded spirituality, and it teaches us how to become healthy adults. From anxiety and depression to codependency and relationship issues, you can use the adult chair for just about anything. Each week, I share practical tips, tools, and advice from myself and a wide range of experts on how to get unstuck, how to live authentically, and how to truly love yourself, all while sitting in your adult chair. Welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast. I am Michelle Chalfant. As always, I am thrilled to be here with you today on the second week of January 2024. Boy, I've got an exciting show for you today. This is a topic that has been near and dear to my heart, probably my whole entire life: intuition. This is something that I personally believe, as well as our guest today, would say we're all born intuitive. Every single human is born intuitive. What happens is it's just like a muscle. If you don't use it, you lose it. So today we are talking with the one and only, the great Laura Day, all about intuition and how to strengthen yours. I have a phenomenal show. Let me tell you a little bit more about Laura Day in case you don't know her. She's a New York Times bestselling author, and she has spent nearly 4 decades helping individuals, organizations, and companies harness and develop their innate intuitive abilities to create profound change. She works with A-list Hollywood stars and Wall Street executives. They give her praise on her ability to predict future events, including the 2008 recession, with astounding accuracy. Laura's work has helped demystify intuition and bring it into the mainstream. In her workshops and presentations, she demonstrates the practical, verifiable, and sometimes astonishing uses of intuition in the field of business, science, medicine, and personal growth. She's the author of 6 best-selling books and has appeared on numerous TV networks, including CNN, Good Morning America, The View, The Oprah Winfrey Show, and so many more. It is with great pleasure that I welcome to the show today, Laura Day. So welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast, Laura Day. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
All the way, I'm talking, I was going to say, I'm channeling you. I'm talking to you all the way in Rome, Italy. I love that. It's so fun that you're joining us. So I appreciate you being on with us today.
Little apartment I've had since I was 23 years old.
Get out of here. Oh, how awesome is that?
42 years, little tiny, it's so sweet.
Oh, I love it. It's very cute looking at it. I was telling you also, I mean, you've written so many books, but I found you probably 15 years ago when I read Practical Intuition. I've loved your work for many, many years. So that's why it's really fun to really connect with you face to face on Zoom, at least, and actually have a chance to talk to you and have you kind of connect with our people here in the adult chair and talk to us a lot about intuition, among other things. So tell us about your life story. Like, for those people that don't know you, how did you become, as I know that there's a term that they use with you called the intuitionist. I love that.
Which I don't get. I don't quite understand. I think Newsweek came up with it like 20 years ago. But my life story is I, like many people, come from a family of trauma. And I was very lucky to, in this family, be born with a unique brain. I have very bad ADD, and I had some head injuries, which made my unique brain even more unique. And so in a way, I escaped the trauma of my childhood because I was so out of my mind and out of my body, but in a very proper New York way,
Mhm.
um, that it really didn't hit me. I was dissociated, which is really the intuitive state, is the detached, dissociative, objective state. I have two siblings who suicided, a mother who suicided.
Oh,
So I
wow.
really am, I'm an example of the way that intuition, that ability to just know, not
Mm.
understand, but
Mhm.
know. And people often confuse intuition with wisdom, which it is not. They're data points.
Mhm.
Um, it really saved my life. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what the push, the voice, the people I'd see that nobody else saw, but I thought everyone saw people no one else saw. I didn't know that this was different in any way, because of course, as young people, we think everyone experiences the world as we do. And at the same time, we're humiliatingly different.
Mhm.
But I didn't realize this until I saw something on television. I was a math and science nerd. I went to a school called Stuyvesant in New York City, full of math and science nerds.
Mhm.
And saw this program on a nerd channel about research that was being done on the extended capacities of the human mind, or extrasensory perception.
Mhm.
I don't agree with that term, by the way, because I think it's all sensory, but that's another discussion. I called them up and said, well, I can do what you're talking about, which it was a lifesaver for me, because I was, I don't have, with ADD, you don't have memory. So I didn't remember enough to be a stellar student. And I wasn't sure I actually had any talents except for taking care of crazy people, which I was raised to do. And so I went in, and this is all in the first book, Practical Intuition, which was published, I think, in 1996.
Wow.
I went in and they did some beginning tests on me. And the first one was a name in an envelope. And I didn't get to see what the name was. And I described the person and what they did for a living and what their physical, I'm from a family of physicians for 3 generations,
Mhm.
what the physical ailments were. And this man had a very rare physical ailment for men at that time. And that's how it started. There was enthusiasm. And because I had nothing else to do, I basically let myself kind of be passed around. And
Mm.
anyone who wanted to do any kind of research on extrasensory perception, on my weirdness, I let them, and they'd say, well, can you tell what's wrong with this machine using your ability? And I said, well, I don't know, but I'll try. And I basically learned by the I don't know, but I'll try method,
Mhm.
because I didn't come from spirituality. I didn't come from belief. I came from, someone finds something interesting about me that's actually pretty weird. Um, I had nothing to prove. What I did, though, respond to was, at a certain point, probably for fundraising purposes, one particular group, and actually it was in Italy, one particular group wanted to describe me as extraordinarily strange, a unique brain. No one can do this. And I was like, nah, I don't buy that. Everyone can do this. And so I basically took a lot of the tests that had been done on me and did them on everybody. And, in your 20s, you have this big friend group. So I
Mhm.
basically trained this entire group of 20-year-olds. I'm able to non-locally perceive extraordinarily well, because
Mm.
simple things my brain doesn't do well, like crossing a street or remembering what's 2 blocks from my house.
Mm.
I actually had a neuropsych eval, because I thought, if I break my hip at 64 years old, they're not going to think ADD, they're going to think dementia. And I better have this down on paper that I was this way at 11. I was this way at 55. So if I'm
Mm.
this way at 85 or 80, hopefully, it
Uh-huh.
won't be dementia. If I'm this way at 75 or 80, that's what it is. So anyway, I did this very incognito. So I would allow people, and mostly companies, because I really didn't want to be part of the new age.
Mhm.
I mean, I was raised kind of as a nerd in New York, and the whole flowing robes and crystal ball thing, I found off-putting.
Mm.
And just because it wasn't something I was familiar with. And, once again, we're talking about a 22-year-old. And so I worked with a lot of doctors, a lot of companies. And when I say work, I basically let them use me as a plaything. They use my brain as a plaything. And in doing so, they trained me. Then many years later, and I was kind of in demand and passed around, and never really gave it any kind of form, because with ADD, nothing has form. I got pregnant and left my husband, who I'd met when I was 16, at the same day practically.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden had to make a living.
Wow.
So one of the people that I spoke to in the morning predicting currency markets, I said, I can't do this anymore. I have to find a job. He said, are you kidding me? I'll pay you anything you want, for this 5 minutes. And that was my first actually official job predicting the future for a company. And
Wow.
I remember I got Guardian health insurance, Guardian life insurance,
Uh-huh.
as I think is typical of women of at least of my generation. I hope not so much of yours, but this was something I did. I did it well. I was expected to do things well, but because I did it, I didn't value it. I never thought, oh, this has monetary value. And
Wow.
all of a sudden, 5 minutes a day, I was making a very good salary with health insurance and life insurance, which was amazing. And that's been the form for my career going forward. I mean, what I do for work is I predict the future for large companies. And what I do, which I love, and I only work with people I love, but what I do that inspires me is I teach people to be just as weird as I am.
I love that. So can all of us be just as weird as you?
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody. So last night in Rome, Soho House opened a Rome Soho House. It's a private club. I don't know what Soho House is. So Soho House opened a thing, and wherever I go, there's this wonderful woman at Soho House, and wherever I go, whatever country I'm in, because I get bored if I'm not doing this with people, she sets up an event. And so last night,
Oh, wow.
I had a room full of people who had never done intuition before. I mean, a few had been to a prior event, but most of them didn't even know what this was. There was one woman who wanted to argue the science of it. I'm like, we have an hour. I'm not going to do this right now. Google. They were all doing readings and blowing each other away. Now, I mean, it is true that certain types of neurology do it better in the sense of with more specificity than others. That's their gift. And usually those are people who are brain damaged, traumatized, they're you're neurologically unique in ways that you don't want to be. But everybody can do it well enough to really impact their lives, and not just their lives, but their communities. Because everyone who says to me, oh, standard medical care and standard this and that, it's a big business. Well, hello, spirituality is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Don't kid yourself. All those vitamins you're taking, all those mantras you're chanting, that's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And to some degree, yes, if you know someone's good, we want to pay for practice and expertise. But the reality is most of your healing and intuitive needs are best satisfied in community with people whose ethics who you trust. So really, before COVID, what I was doing was going around the United States, showing up at whatever had a big space, a Unity Church, a YMCA, whatever had a big space. And 1,000 people would show up, and I'd have everyone reading each other and do laying on of hands by the end of the evening. And it was great, because we really find that we're not somebody's and nobody's. The person you think hasn't made it may actually not have made it because their neurology is unique and they can be a guide for you. So there is a format to elicit intuition and not opinion. Opinion often is wrong. Intuition is rarely wrong. There's a format, which is why I've written 6 books about it, on how to do it effectively. But I really encourage people to do this in community, to do laying on of hands on each other, to ask each other where their keys are, someone in a different state, to really train this in themselves, because it gives you the information, not the answer, not the wisdom. It gives you the information you need. And life is, by the way, I'm a New Yorker, so I can talk without breathing. So interrupt at any time.
I love that. This is also great. No, I love this. I love this. So anyone can be, are we all born intuitive, would you say, with the ability to be intuitive?
Actually, we are all born intuitive. We are
Yeah.
all born mediums, because what a medium is somebody who can become anything. A medium, I can say, "See this glass," and they can tell you what, from the glass's perspective, it feels like to exist. So when you're born, you haven't developed this beautiful thing we develop called the ego. So there's no frame for all of your talents to play upon. It's just mush, basically, a little genetics, basic drives, but basically, baby's mush. You are pure intuition with some basic mammalian drives. What happens as you begin to connect with the world and develop the structure of an ego is that intuition gets repressed and reutilized into things like creativity, stranger danger, really knowing your environment. It gets used in practical ways. And that's what should happen, because you can't develop an I, a structure of self from which you create everything in the world. You can't develop that and at the same time not be located in time and space or be one with everything. Everyone's real into empathy lately. I'm like, you're an empath? That's a psychiatric disorder, and I have a referral for you. And it's not useful. Empathy is useful for a moment, and then you either be helpful or you stay in your own reality. So we're born intuitives. We repress it, we channel it outward into adaptive behaviors. But then when the ego is formed and we are driven as more matured beings, we're driven to become excellent at things, to choose who we want to be, not who we've developed in the development of genetics and our history, but we get inspired. That's when all of a sudden intuition begins to open up and show us direction that we didn't have access to, because everyone's big on positive visualization and creative visualization. But the reality is you can only visualize what you know. Intuition shows you not only shows you, but gives you the experience of what you don't know, but you want. And that is an incredible, incredible ability. And I love to see people using this for each other. For me, I mean, I get the best readings because I train people on Instagram every morning. Anyone comes on and then we do readings. I get the most amazing readings. I never have to pay for a reading. Between my students, people on Instagram who just, say, looks sunny, but I'm telling you it's going to rain today. Or you were going to wear those brown heels. Don't, you're going to sprain your ankle. I mean, it's just like, and I'm like, well, yes. The way I train them is you give a piece of data so the person knows you're right. And then you give the prediction. You're not allowed to say, this is the prediction. No, you've got to show them you're on that timeline, you're oriented in time and space, and then you give the prediction. So I love just getting people together to do this. And it's also fun. I work primarily as a professional in what I call the straight world, doctors, lawyers, engineers. And I really, I enjoy that because it allows them to do better in their real world, to be better practitioners, and to not kind of, we're really in an era where everyone's focused on trauma, on finding their trauma. You don't have to look for your trauma, guys. Try to do something, try to go after something that you haven't been able to achieve. Your trauma will show up right here. You
Oh,
can you
yeah.
cannot not deal with your trauma. It doesn't exist. And then you'll find all the wonderful tools. But spending your life looking for your trauma, wow, I say that's a real waste of energy. Same thing with empathy, feeling for and with everybody actually has no impact. It's kind of like having a drink. It just has an impact on you. The what has impact is to be able to use intuition to say, oh, wow, I'm part of this community and world, and I see something that I have the capacity to change, and then to allow intellect and intuition to join to show you how to change it.
So much good stuff. I have so many questions here. What's the difference between, I've had people ask me this question over the years. How do you know if it's intuition or your mind or it's fear? Like, how do you know the difference? How do you tell?
You don't. There are some indicators. One is if it's a persistent fear, it's not intuition. Intuition is accurate, immediate, and actionable. So if you know you're going to die in a fiery crash, I guarantee you're not going that way. That's neurosis. Intuition also doesn't tell you things you can't do anything about. Intuition is more likely to say, don't get in the red car with a B in the license plate, than to say you're going to die in a fiery crash. And then you might say, oh, well, why not? And you get a sudden instinct of fire. Intuition isn't juicy. It doesn't have feeling like our fears do. Intuition really is data. And often when we fear, it's really just a way of keeping ourselves stuck. I always tell my students, yeah, you're all stuck in the past and you're all stuck in the, worried about the future, because you don't have to do anything about those two places.
Right.
Mindfully do something, saying, okay, what's there to be done? Being empowered. That's where your intuition comes in. So if in the moment you have a strong sense that you should not take the subway to work, I wouldn't take the subway to work, because that's immediate and it's actionable. And you'll usually find out there was a flood on the train and it was delayed an hour.
Do you think that people feel it, or do they hear it, or could it be both?
They rarely feel it. Usually feeling just takes you to the data. You hear it, you see it, you taste it, you smell it, and sometimes you feel it. You use your five senses. It's a misnomer that intuition's a sixth sense. It's not. It's an extension of all of your senses in time and in space. So it's being able to experience the future and make corrections now. It's really the ability to literally see a remote location, the ability to feel, that's mediumship, what someone else is feeling. But there's a purpose to it. Like, fear really doesn't have a purpose when it's persistent fear. A sudden fear as an indicator to take you to information has a purpose, but not when we go to feeling. There's a AA saying that I love, which is feeling isn't fact. And it's actually the least factual thing in terms of real life data. It shows you your perspective, but it doesn't really evaluate what's going on. Intuition does. One of the ways you know the difference between your fear and your intuitions is if you're using intuition well, it tells you enough important stuff that you want to write it down, that you document it. And over time, you notice that you are correct. And then your intuition comes as really kind of like that pesky parent who says, you really shouldn't do that. And you say, oh, but I really want to, so I'm going to ignore that. I really shouldn't, and by the way, intuition is something you dialogue with, because intuition often tells me I shouldn't eat something, for example.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to, and then I get sick, but I wanted to eat it,
Right.
As you know, as a therapist, the subconscious, that pesky subconscious, is subconscious. And we have a way of using, our experiences, our feelings, giving them justifications, in order to stay put, because as mammals, we hate change, and I hate change more than most. If you really decide, if you take a moment to realize all life is change, and you embrace it, which is really hard. I'm not there yet. I'm almost 65 years old. But if you embrace what happens in life as there may not be a reason for everything. However, it's my job to make everything great for me. So how do I take this event that could be perceived as misfortune, and how do I use it? Because everything that happens to you in life opens an opportunity, not because it's destined, but because you are powerful. And that's the thing that breaks my heart the most about most people, is they don't realize how unbelievably powerful they are to make change for themselves, to make change for others.
Yeah. I mean, so many people stay stuck and they don't realize that they are powerful creators and they can get their way out of it.
Yeah.
How, so what's the difference between being intuitive and being psychic?
Nothing.
Same thing.
Being psychic requires purple robes, lots of crystal jewelry, cats. Being intuitive, you can be an intuitive doctor. I used to train physicians to be more intuitive with diagnosticians. It doesn't have all the
woo-woo.
kitsch with it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have all,
Yeah.
but it's, that is weird.
Yeah. I mean,
I mean,
I remember reading your first book and I was like, wow, this is so grounded. Like there is no woo-woo. It's just not, it just,
it's funny. My clients often say to me, this should freak me out, but it doesn't,
yeah,
and
it just is. It's just like that. We are born with this ability. We can tap into it or not. And it's okay if you don't, but you're someone that is here to really help people to understand that we all have this ability and it's a lot easier than people would think. Huh?
I
Right?
said, it's also not okay. It's not okay if you don't, because guess what? You're intuitive whether or not you want to be. So my example, that are having in your head for weeks,
Yeah.
and then you bump into a person and they continue the argument with you and you haven't spoken to them except in your head, that's telepathy. That's really happening. And that could really be bringing you down. It's so important to learn to reroute things to positive goals. Mediumship. I mean, as you know, again, as a therapist, depression, anxiety, hunger, even physical hunger, all communicable.
Yeah.
When you learn mindfulness, when you learn to not allow everyone into your physical space energetically, you have to learn that, or you are always a little bit you and a lot of other people. So remote viewing, how many places is your attention that's not in your room right now or wherever you are?
Yeah.
The problem with that is you can't have impact if you're all over the place. Your energy should be right here. Intuition should serve to bring you the information right here to make the good move, to say the right thing, to stop the argument, to start the argument, to win the argument. That's what that, so you have to on some level deal with intuition, whether you want to or not, because you are being intuitive all the time. And intuition isn't this amazing gift that comes with unicorns and angels. Intuition is your ability to experience things that perhaps you don't want to experience. And so it's important to know it's functional in your life so you can make choices, so you can realize, wait a sec, I'm not anxious. I have no boundaries. I'm picking up everybody else's thoughts, feelings, judgments, hunger, neurological blips. I'm experiencing them. They have nothing to do with me. And that's in How to Rule the World from Your Couch, which I showed you. It's the only book that's actually still published in Italian. So I give this to all. The first thing I do is give people an experience they can document of either precognition or telepathy. But then I speak about, no, you don't want to be more intuitive. You want to have more control over your intuition. Different.
Okay, you've said a few things. One thing I want to go back to is you said that sometimes we're picking up on other people's energy.
All the time.
All the time. Yeah. I found this a lot when I see that now with my coaches, but even when I had in-person sessions with people for 20 some years. What are some ways that you would recommend that people can, well, obviously everyone needs to become aware of this. A lot of your emotions are not yours, but how do we boundary ourselves? How do we protect ourselves from that?
So the psychic way is you put gold around you, you put light around you. It doesn't work. First of all, the only way really to the starting point to protect yourself is mindfulness. And mindfulness is not meditation. Mindfulness is bringing your five senses in to where you are. What are you tasting? What are you smelling? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? And what are you feeling? And really keeping your attention on self, continuously bringing it in to self. And then you'll find when there are less people in you, less things in you, then all of a sudden you're more aware of your surroundings, both intellectually, intuitively, sensory way. There are a lot of different ways to do it. For example, telepathy. Pick a conversation you want to have with a lover you haven't met yet, who's fabulous, with a new job, with the backer for your business. Pick a conversation you want to have. And every time you're having a conversation you don't want to have, and we tend to have them 100 times a day. Like if you're still arguing with a dead parent, perhaps it's time to stop. If an internal argument isn't going anywhere, even a living parent, if an internal argument isn't going anywhere, every time you have it, you need to use discipline to reroute to having it again. Okay, wait. Let me be mindful, take a breath. Let me connect with you, my love. Let me experience you as I eat my dinner. I call them a wormhole exists, but I call them the wormholes, where you bring the future into the present. You don't use imagination, you allow. So for example, before I met my current husband, I was single for 2 years. And I would be mindful. And when I had the conversation, with my father, who talked to me like I was milk and I was getting old. I mean, I was in my 50s, but I instead put my arm around him, or felt his arm around me, or I danced with him, which my son loved to make fun of. And first time my now husband put his arms around me and danced with me, which, by the way, he said he'd never done. He's not a dancing person.
Wow.
In my living room to a song, I burst into tears because I had done that probably 100 times.
Wow. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. So talk to us about, for those people listening, like, gosh, where would I begin? Like, give us a couple ideas on how we can start enhancing our intuition today.
So once again, I'm going to take the enhancing out of it. And what you want to do is you want to direct your intuition, because you are intuitive. You're picking all the time. So first thing is, we tend to live through our difficulties, our gripes, or our fears. have goals. What are your goals? So on Instagram every day with my group, some of whom I've never met, they all have 3 goals written down at home. And then I pick a number and I say, okay, I have a number, and I don't look at the number because I want to rule out my telepathy with them. I have a number. So everyone tags someone in the group, and mind you, they've never met each other. You know, there are, I don't know, 27,000 people who've never met each other. Tag somebody in the group and do a reading. How do you do a reading? You have a goal, and this is how you do it for yourself. You have a goal, but you have to trick yourself into not knowing what it is because the mind wants to think. And you just notice. So think of a goal right now, or actually write down a goal right now. You don't have to tell, you're not gonna have to tell the audience what it is.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. So before you wrote it down, I was looking at, and I want to show you in the audience what it is. I was looking at my Ganesh pillows.
Okay.
And they kind of looked like the obstacles are getting old with this goal. You know, they're repetitive, they're getting old. And then I noticed the light. And so you use things in your environment also. And I see a light, but I don't actually want to look in that direction yet. And I don't want to look at that direction yet because it would make me, meaning you, take responsibility for making decisions I don't want to make. So
good.
And then all of a sudden I experienced the month of December. To me, it just came as I saw it written December. So I go to December, and I have a feeling like there's some kind of self-imposed deadline almost that's around. So that's how you read. Some of it's external, internal. What you do though is you're not looking for anything. You follow your attention. And by the way, it's really hard to stop reading, because one of the things I'm seeing is I get to kind of, and I'm going to skip over winter here for my own reasons, and I get to spring and summer, and doors have opened. And when doors open, I see an S initial around that, an S. And that's how you read, and that's how they do it online. So the first thing you do to open your intuition or to direct it effectively is you have goals, because you're a magnet for information, but we have way more information, and the mind is a messy place. Once you have goals, you'll notice all of these out of the blue things that come in. I wrote a book called The Circle, which is a system that asks you to create one goal. Doesn't mean you give up on all of them. It means you're creating one so you have context. It's like an ego structure for your goals. You have one goal, and you contextualize everything else in terms of that one goal. So let's say your goal is to fall in love, but you get offered a great new job. Okay, you do the job, and how does this affect falling in love? Well, let me go into the office as who I want to be in a relationship. Like it provides, but what it does when you have one goal is you know that all of those out of the blue blips are your intuition about that goal, because you have picked one solid focus. My first goal in The Circle, because I wrote this book after writing 3 books on intuition. And my question to myself was, and this was, The Circle was the answer: if I have so much data, if I am so damn intuitive and not stupid, why is my life such a mess? I realized that having the data doesn't help. That really doesn't. We all know we shouldn't smoke. How many people still do? We all know we shouldn't do X. No, that having the data doesn't help. That actually there is a framework to life, to anything you create and anything you are. And working within that framework, expanding from within instead of being all over the place. That's what we call good luck. So I wrote The Circle, and I do The Circle every day, and I do it with my group. And it starts with pick a single goal. It has to be something you really want, because otherwise the subconscious is not going to get on board with helping you be more organized. It has to be, I want to be rich. I want to fall in love. I want something that you want that's juicy, because then you have your subconscious on board. You have your drive on board. So it asks you, pick a goal, and then there are 8 other elements that really just kind of came to me. I hate the word channeled because it often means just stuff you can't prove, but it really came out of me, and it
Wow.
saved my life. It literally within weeks, I had a book deal for my first book. And my first goal was to be a full-time stay-at-home mother. But this was like how I could make a living and stay home and be a full-time mother. And as a aside, it gave me an incredibly successful career. But wasn't what I was going for. I just wanted to be able to be the kindergarten class mother.
So
And
having
had
a
no
circle,
money.
you're saying, is having the people around you that will support you. Tell me more about the circle. Tell us more about it.
One element, but the circle really is, how do you take a goal? How do you take a life and create it successfully? And there are 9 elements. The first one is, because your question was, how do we employ intuition? The circle is how we do it. We have a goal. We allow the experience. That's the second element. It's called embodiment. We allow the experience. We allow the information to come in. We don't look for it, because we look in the habitual places. The information isn't in the habitual places for something new.
Yeah.
It's somewhere else. So you set a goal, you allow the experience, and it comes in all the time, and you notice it. And that experience, when it comes in, you do rituals. A ritual can be as simple as, like I did, I set a place at the table for my new partner. I cleaned out a drawer. Little did I know he'd take all the drawers and all the closets. I cleaned out a drawer. So rituals are important because they challenge your habits.
Yeah.
So you can do big things with friends that are dramatic. You can kill a chicken and dance naked under the moon with your covenant. Set an extra place, walk to work a different way. So rituals inspire sacredness. If something is not sacred to you, if it doesn't transcend in its meaning, if it doesn't create in its meaning, why are you doing it? Why are you eating it? Why are you having sex with it? Why are you scrolling through it? Life should have meaning. It should be sacred. Now, some of us have jobs we hate, but it's sacred to make a living. So sometimes it's taking what is and finding the sacredness in it. Do I love being the only person in my house who knows how to cook? Nah. But do I find it sacred to offer nourishment to my family? Yes. So some of it is how we frame it. So that's the third element, dealing with inner roadblocks. Are the wishes you have the wishes you want? Examine that. If the same problem keeps coming up, it is an inner roadblock. It's an old wish, an old belief. And that requires healing. And often healing requires intervention, because one of my new favorite quotes is, you can't think outside of the box. You are the box.
Yeah.
We need healers, intuitives, communities, so that you can deal with those inner roadblocks. If everyone is telling you you're controlling, maybe that's something that you want to experiment and ask them, give me an example of an alternative in a specific situation that I can try. Help me be in a situation where I am safely out of control. I mean, when people call me controlling, I think, who better to be in control? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That means I'm willing to do the work. But, sometimes you want to have the option. That there are outer roadblocks. We're coming out of this era of If I think it, it'll happen. Nah, doesn't work that way. Set a goal, but then there are real life things you need to deal with. Intuition will show them to you, but they won't fix it for you.
Right.
You need
That's true.
to say, connect. And sometimes the inner and outer roadblocks mesh. Like I know lots of actors who refuse to work at anything else except their craft, but they have no success. The minute that they take a waitressing job, they get that part.
Oh, yeah.
So it's interesting how synchronicities, meaningful coincidences, miracles, whatever you want to call them, tend to happen when we're not pretending that an outside world doesn't exist that we have to deal with and respond to. It doesn't mean that you always have to get that degree to be successful, but it means you need to notice that that may be an obstacle and begin the options to deal realistically with your environment. Then there's my least favorite thing with intuition in the circle, which is making space. You won't see what you need to see if you're not willing to experience letting go of what you no longer need. You may not even know what that is, but it's a position of attention. It's this to experience loss and to grieve. The learning how to grieve is one of the most powerful things you can do, because life is about change, and life is that change is always about loss. Most of the things that you lose really had a sacred purpose. Even if it's 200 pounds of extra weight, that weight maybe protected you. That weight was a part of you, and we're so cavalier about moving from one thing to another. So making space is necessary. It is my least favorite element, I will admit. The other one is coherence. You're a system. So with intuition, when new information comes in, you always need to be mindful of how it impacts the rest of the parts of your life, the rest of the information, some of it false, that you hold dear. So willingness to do that, to create, and coherence is really helpful. Like whenever I want something new, I talk it through with people I trust who also are ruthlessly honest. I want this. They'll say, really? Do you really? Have you considered this, and this? And I'll say, oh, well, how would I reconcile? And then intuition comes in and gives you some new ways to reconcile the fact that you want to be A, but A doesn't really fit with B and can challenge C. And how do we work? Because you're a system living within a system within a system. And so every change is complex, but that's also why a teeny little change can change your entire life. So, and then the last thing with intuition and the last element of the circle is unity. Nothing is done in a vacuum. And even if you think it's done in a vacuum, it's not. There's so much research now on things like remote viewing, astral projection, telepathy, precognition. Just go to PubMed, you'll see all of these very strangely titled experiments. But even when you're alone in a room, you're in community, you are transmitting ideas, people are responding to them. It is so important to appropriately find your community. And I do a lot of community events. And often I invite people and I pay for the food and I do everything and they think I'm so generous. No, it makes my life easy. I'm inviting you in. What do you need that I have that's easy for me to give? What do you need that I have? I don't even have to ask for it, because when you're in community, you begin to work as a hive.
Yeah, true.
And all boats rise. I just had a dinner in London where I was doing some work of all the journalists who interviewed me there. Not all of them, but a bunch of them, because I thought, you guys should know each other. you get offers for speaking events you can't do, you can hand it to this one. And by the way, it helps me because they're all half my age and have all kinds of amazing suggestions where I can effortlessly do the things I want. So
Right.
I think community is the most underutilized thing we have, because we tend to live in ghettos.
Yeah.
The wonderful thing about traveling and teaching, you get out of your ghetto and have new ideas and new resources. And often, I'm sure all of you have had the experience that you don't notice you do something well until someone responds to it.
They have to mirror it for us, right?
Mirror or enjoy it,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it really, I never realized how well I make a home until I noticed everyone falls asleep in my home. Like even
Aw.
strangers at a cocktail party, I'm so relaxed I could take a nap.
That's beautiful. That was so good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This whole, yes.
Circle.
Huh?
Circle is my favorite. It's the book I do all the time.
Yeah, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to go get it. And you were talking about it. I'm like, I made it out. I'm like, I will be getting that book as soon as we're done here.
And you have to do it though. None of my books are like easy reading books. They're all sweat, blood, and tears books. They're all, you got to do this, and then you got to do this, and then, but by the time you're on the second, you got to do this, you're already seeing results. And so you're motivated.
Yeah, that's important too, or else you won't keep going. Thank you so much. Where would people find you if they want to learn more?
LauraDay.com, Laura Day Intuit on Instagram. I go on in my pajamas. I started during COVID all the time. And I've written 6 books that are really workshops. They're books that you can do and do with friends, and then teach it take them into your groups and do them for each other. We are each other's best resources.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was amazing. Enjoy the rest of your time in Rome.
Thank you so much. Enjoyed this.
All right, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed the show today. Start practicing your intuition. Start strengthening that muscle. You have got it in you. I promise you. I've worked with people for 20 plus years on this talent or gift that we all have called intuition. You've got this. You can do this. Get in your heart. Start feel what's true for you. So my friends, have a wonderful week, the rest of this week, and I'll see you right here next week in the Adult Chair.